in and buy new things like appliances, radios, and automobiles. For the first time, there were more Americans living in the city than on the farms. It was the golden age of sports, with people like Babe Ruth and Jim Thorpe being role models for many. In the 1920s, there were many technological advancements like the Lindbergh flight, but there were also some bad things like the communist scare and many new immigration laws that were put into place. Also, many hate groups like the KKK having large amounts of members in the Klan. Does history repeat itself? Well, today, in 2018, many people still look up to athletes. Our technology is still advancing rapidly. We have other countries that are a threat to us today. Immigration policies are still a problem, and we still have hate groups. American role models. 1920s. In the 1920s, people to be considered role models and heroes were mainly athletes, such as Babe Ruth, who is considered to be the best baseball player to ever live and also the home run king. Jim Thorpe was also an all-around athlete that played football, baseball, and basketball and went to the Olympics for track. Bill Tilden, who won 6 straight U.S. National Championship men's singles titles and Wimbledon twice. He also won 13 straight Davis Cup matches and leading the United States to 7 consecutive titles, which is a Davis Cup record. Helen Wills, another tennis player, repeated as National Girls Champion in 1922 and won her first women's singles title in 1923 at the age of 17. She was 7-time U.S. champion and won 8 times in Wimbledon. Gertrude Elderly. In 1925, she became the first woman to swim the English Channel. She broke 7 records in a single afternoon in 1922. Due to all these great athletes coming out of this area, this is called the Golden Age of Sports, although the nickname comes from an increased amount of media coverage on these games. American role models. Today. Today, many role models are still athletes, like how many people look up to basketball star LeBron James. He is the best, if not one of the best basketball players to ever live. He has won multiple NBA championships and finals MVPs. Pro golfer Tiger Woods has won 80 PGA Tour victories, 12 international victories, and 14 victories from other matches. He also finished first in the FedEx Cup in 2007. These athletes are constantly doing stuff on and off the field for people and their fans to help others. Today there are also many other types of people considered heroes, like scientists who discovered water on Mars. Also there are scientists constantly working on cures for cancer and other diseases, like tetanus, which only had 200 cases from 2001 to 2008, and yellow fever, which has been eliminated from the United States. The scientists who discovered these cures are now considered heroes for saving lives, just like the pro athletes of today and the past. Transatlantic flight and new technology. 1920s. In the early 1900s and into the 1920s, technology was rapidly advancing, and the Lindbergh flight shows perfectly how technology was advancing quickly. Technology was advancing rapidly, with things like Henry Ford and the assembly line producing cars at a much faster rate. Also, they had people like the famous aviator Charles Lindbergh. He was a 25-year-old pilot from Detroit nicknamed Lucky Lindy for his famous flight. Lindbergh was the man who was the first solo transatlantic flight from Long Island, New York to Paris, France. The flight took more than 33 hours, and the lone pilot had to stay awake the entire time. Lindbergh recalled, "In the daytime I knew where I was going, but in the evening and at night it was a largely a matter of guesswork." Lindbergh's feat gained him immediate international fame. The press named him Lucky Lindy and the Lone Eagle. Americans and Europeans idolized the shy, slim young man and greeted him with honors. Transatlantic flight and new technology. Today we're moving forward extremely fast, and we are getting new technology like magnetic trains, which are quickly becoming more popular. The fastest passenger train in the world is the Shanghai Maglev train, which can reach a top speed of 268 miles per hour. New smartphones are becoming so powerful that you can unlock them with your face, and you do not even need a cord to charge them, so you just have to put them down on a wireless charging station. Also, the headphones connected to these phones are becoming wireless, just like many other objects. Virtual reality technology is a 3-dimensional, computer-generated environment which can be explored and interacted with by the person. The person becomes part of this virtual world, and in it they are able to manipulate objects or perform a series of actions like ride roller coasters, play sports, watch entertainment, and perform the arts. The Red Scare in the 1920s in North Korea today. In the 1920s, Soviet Union communist revolts broke out in Central and Eastern Europe. People started to fight against the spread of communism, and many people were scared communism would spread throughout the entire world. After World War I, the Red Scare started to spread to the United States too. The communist radicalists would send threats to industries and companies, or government. They'd also send threats to government officials such as Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer. There were also terroristic attacks across the country, such as one where 40 people were killed on Wall Street. After these attacks, the government set out these things called Palmer raids, and the Palmer raids were a series of police arrests of thousands of radicalists and suspected or potential radicalists from Southern and Eastern Europe. The government then deported their people arrested to make sure that there was no communism left in the country. There was also the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, which was an organization that protected the liberties of the American people. The Sacco Vanzetti case, which was two men who were Italian immigrants, and they were known anarchists. They were charged with the shooting and killing of two men during a holdup at a shoe factory near Boston. This caused a lot of chaos, and people were very angry with how the case turned out. The Red Scare in the 1920s in North Korea today. North Korea today is a communist nation. Many people in North Korea don't have enough food to eat every day due to the strict government. Many people are scared for their lives and safety in the country and in countries surrounding because of North Korea's threats and increasing amounts of weapons. North Korea has threatened other countries with their nuclear war/weapons and rocket launch threats. Immigration limits. 1920s. Immigration laws were put in place by nativists. Nativists were people who believed that native-born Americans were superior to immigrants. Nativists argued that immigrants took jobs from native-born Americans. They also argued that immigrants threatened American religious, political, and cultural traditions. Most nativist politicians pushed to restrict immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe. Nativists also believed many immigrants had undesirable physical or social traits and would not be productive members of society. On the night that America entered World War I, a law was passed that required immigrants to take and pass a literacy test. Immigration rates dropped during the war due to laws like this and many others. This worsened labor shortage problems. Another way nativists tried to limit immigration is they passed the National Origins Act, which limited the number of immigrants of a given nationality each year. The number of immigrants could not exceed 2% of the number of people of that nationality living in the United States in 1890. Immigration limits. Today we still have immigration laws that have not changed much but are still alike in some ways. Today you may not enter the country illegally or without a U.S. citizenship. President Donald Trump wants to build a wall to prevent Central Americans from coming into the country illegally. For example, the caravan coming from Honduras has many immigrants trying to get into the U.S. illegally, and the wall would make it much more difficult for the immigrants coming in and would limit the amount that possibly get in. Illegal immigrants are considered a problem because they are doing America's jobs for a cheaper price and not paying taxes. Also, some illegal immigrants committing crimes such as murder, theft, and battery. Currently, there are an estimated 10.7 million immigrants illegally in the U.S., and that number is rising. The KKK and hate groups today. The KKK, which was a hate group that wanted to turn back the clock to a better time and lashed out against change. At one point, the Klan had 4 to 5 million members, and most of it was in the South. They boycotted against African Americans, Jewish, and Catholics. They were all white, a white robe, and a pointed cone-shaped hat that covered their entire face. They have a logo/patch that is a white cross on a red backdrop and a red blood drop that is in the center of the white cross. Today we still have the KKK, but the popularity has gone down. Also, there are now more groups such as people who believe in anti-Semitism, anti-Muslims, and anti-LGBT societies. There are over 953 hate groups in the United States right now in 2018. California is the state that has the most hate groups with 75. Hate groups today continue to have protests all over the country for what they believe in. Some of those protests are violent, some are not. So, does history repeat itself? We will let you decide that, but we have provided you with the information needed.